what's going on, everybody? Welcome. Today is Monday, July 29, and you're watching the Daily AI Show live. We are, in fact, live, and we are the Daily AI Show. Today, we are talking about GPT-4.0 Mini, which has been out for a couple weeks. It is a compact version of the GPT-4.0 model that's been, lots of people have been talking about it. We've been putting it through its paces and with our prompts. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about how we're comparing it and where it's a good idea or is it a good idea, all of those sorts of things. The reason that GPT-4.0 Mini is exciting is because it's so much less expensive. And what we're always trying to do with AI and AI models is finding the sweet spot between performance and cost efficiency, right? Like, so what can you use it for? Where can you get away with it? And where can you not get away with it? And it's basically a mini version of 4.0. It's designed to offer a significant portion of GPT-4.0 capabilities, but as a fraction of the cost. I've run it through some of the crazy prompts. Do you get it right? And so we'll go through some things. I was surprised to find a couple of results. We'll talk about that. But what I'm curious about is I'm going to ask some questions before I even introduce them. With me today is Jyunmi and Karl, and I'm Beth. Brian is on assignment. And we are, who wants to kick off? Jyunmi, what's your sense of what's your decision about GPT-4.0 Mini?
So, I like the fact that it's cheaper. But in my tests, for my day-to-day tests, I didn't see much of an improvement in terms of speed or what the response was. But of course, most of my day-to-day inquiries or what am I looking for? Most of my questions, I guess I'm asking for, or responses that I'm looking for, is day-to-day tasks. So, going through the post-production for the show, we're obviously trying to extract the transcript, and we're trying to evaluate what kind of chapters and timeline that we can build, and what kind of social media posts we can extract from the summaries, and creating the summaries for the shows and things like that. So these are all low-hanging fruit, very mundane type of tasks, which Mini is supposed to excel at. And in terms of how much it would cost me to run these, it does excel at those. What I'm saying is the responses that I'm getting quality-wise is approximately the same. I'm getting the kind of responses. So I no longer have to use 4.0. I can use the lighter model Mini for those mundane tasks. And that was my main takeaway. Those are the kinds of prompts and things like that I'm running on a daily basis. This is my everyday. So I'm not trying to run through mega prompts or elaborate prompt chaining or any of those kinds of things. So all in all, I say Mini wins out just because it's cheaper than 4.0 when running the model. And if you have an automation that's running the same, we'll call it low-level prompts, then you're going to just win out by using Mini instead of the full 4.0.
Awesome. And actually, in terms of prompt chaining, one of the things that we taught in the prompting course from the AI exchange, I always get it confused and say different words in there. That's why I was so slow. In the AI exchange, we taught prompt chaining with the idea that you are literally chaining separate prompts together so that when you found something that worked just as well with a cheaper model, you could do that, right? Like you could move within your long prompt chain and start saving money at the places where it was really cost effective to do so. Nice. Hey, Karl, what's your thought about this? Have you had any chance to play with 4.0 Mini?
I think the one that I would normally use it for would be probably just trying out with third-party chatbots that, for certain clients. So, when 4.0 came out, you noticeably actually improved how fast it was, because obviously it's using the API. But when you do use 4.0, you notice how slower it is, and it's just different. And I can show an example if everyone wants to do a little
sounds good
test. And I was on a panel yesterday. No, not yesterday. I think it was on Thursday, and we talked about college admissions. And I created a quick little digital assistant as part of the example. So this is actually not in use. This is just an example. So I trained this chatbot on, I found this Ivy League admissions interview tips. So I trained it on this. And then I also trained it on this YouTube video, how to pass your Ivy League admissions interview step by step, 27 minutes long. Okay, so from a settings swap, let's use GPT-4.0 Mini. And one of the, I think I had one of these. Oh yeah, I had a question. So this question here, what's the motivation and reasoning for Ivy League interviews? This is their motivation is threefold. This is what I'm looking for. These A, B, and C. So now I've done this test right before this show. So let's see what happens. So the conversation, just type that in. What is the motivation and reasoning for Ivy League interviews? Again, this is GPT-4.0 Mini. It was Mini, right? I can't remember sometimes. Let's go. It is Mini. Okay, so let's go with GPT-4.0. Let's save that. Okay, let's do it again. Pretty much as quick as both the same. Let's try another question here. You know what? Let's take a look at here. See technical aspects. What's her longest thing? Discussing extracurriculars. How about answering why this school? Okay, let's try that. So I'm gonna go back to settings. Let's go back to GPT-4.0 Mini. Save that. Conversations. Okay, so how to answer the question, why this school? Okay, so I'm just gonna make sure copy paste that. Okay, let's see what it says. Pretty decent, I think. I haven't actually watched that video, so I have no clue.
So you've no idea.
I've been looking for how it looks, so I have no clue if that's even correct. So let's go back to settings. Let's go to GPT-4.0. Let's save this. Back to conversations. Same thing. So this one is a little bit different. Notice the different. So I'm not sure which one, but it's generally as fast too. What I did notice in a previous test with before the show is that 4.0 Mini was just a little here slower than GPT-4.0. And that's kind of where I am with this.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So I found something similar. I found that they're pretty comparable. I found it depended on the kinds of questions you were asking, whether it was going to be faster or slower. 4.0 Mini is specifically supposed to be good at math and coding. And I did find when I asked it a math question, it was much faster than 4.0. When I did coding questions, both of them made the same mistake. I asked for a Python script that was just going to print numbers from 1 to 100. And both of them did it. And for people who don't know, there's a convention that if you use 3 backticks before code and then 3 backticks at the end of code, it creates a block that is understood that this is code. Like, don't spell check this. And in most programs, you can see it, right? It's a whole block that is easy to copy and paste. Both programs put Python as the first line in the code. And Python, like if you leave Python in your script, it gives you an error. It says it's error line 1. That's not a thing, right? So I found it interesting that both of them did the script correctly, but had that incorrect place first. And the math thing for 4.0 Mini was definitely faster. I also found that logic puzzles, which is maybe not what they're great about, both had problems with. So there's a killer one. Let me go and find what I'm saying, so I'm not lying to you. There is there we go. So this is like one of those typical, there are 3 killers in the room. There are 3 killers in a room. Someone enters the room and kills one of them. Nobody leaves the room. How many killers are left in the room? And explain your reasoning step by step. So I ran this a couple times. Which is another takeaway from all of this, because you're going to need to run things because the models are based on prediction, right? What's the most likely response kind of thing. So getting it right and getting it wrong it happens on a regular basis. Like there's a randomness in that. And the first time I ran it, GPT-4.0 got it correct. And it said basically that if someone has come into the room and killed someone, they are by definition a killer and can be counted in the how many killers are still alive in the room. In the next time I ran it, and GPT-4.0 Mini said no, because a murderer is not technically a killer. I then asked, how would you describe a murderer? Like, what would you call a murderer? And they both said, yes, killer, murderer, social deviant, I think was another one of the possible descriptions. And then I asked the question again, and neither one took the bait. They both said, yes. You have 2 live killers and a live murderer. So that's one of those pieces where I think what we're seeing from the language model is it is that it doesn't do synonyms like people do synonyms, right? Like synonyms are things that are closer in terms of the node or share a similar kind of structure, because it's doing tokens, right? So murderer actually has a different set of tokens for the word than killers, and in the way that that's laid out internally, I think in the neural framework, that just doesn't seem close in the way that we would experience a synonym. That's my explanation for that. But I did, again, like if you're really looking for big research logic kind of stuff, you're probably not looking at 4.0 Mini anyway. Like it's not going to be great at that. Yeah. What else did you think? What else did you find, Jimmy?
So, one little issue I did run into, and this is no shade on OpenAI, because they were very clear when they released it, is what mode or modalities that it accepted, right? So it's text and vision right now, and they did say they're going to release the other modes, but the thing I wasn't aware of was attachments. It doesn't work with attachments, so you can't upload. And this is part of, like I said, the low-hanging fruit, my mundane everyday tasks is to load up the transcript and do a summary and do all those kinds of things. And so when I tried to load up my normal process, I had to adapt because I couldn't go straight to Mini on that because attachments weren't supported or are not as supported as of yet. So there are some obvious limitations. It's not going to be a complete replacement for 4.0 in all instances. So that's number one, of course. Number two, it's not just here, this is cheaper. Do all of your mundane things, or at least you're going to have to change it because it has the same context window as 4.0. But, when you're messing with on average, 40-something minute transcript, that's a lot of tokens. And you can't necessarily fit all of your instructions plus all of your transcript in a single context window. Normally, we get past all of this with doing custom GPTs and other automations and things like that. But for testing my day-to-day, these are the kinds of things that I was running into. So unless your system can just allow you to plug in the 4.0 Mini model, part of your automation or whatnot, your workflow, then you just got to be cognizant of some of these current limitations.
Okay, say that again, because this 4.0 has a 128 context window. 128 does?
Yes, they both have the same. They both have the same context window. It's a matter of processing. Like I said, the errors I ran into, or the errors part of my workflow, is it can't Mini cannot handle attachments through the GPT interface. So a lot of my workflows have that as part of the process.
Got it. That makes sense. And I just want to say welcome, Andy. Andy has joined us. Very, very cool. Andy, did you have a chance to go through and play with 4.0 Mini?
I did. I did one little experiment. It's kind of similar to what Karl showed. I'll share my screen in a moment to show you that. But what I was interested in seeing is whether there was a different kind of voicing that came out of GPT-4.0 Mini as compared to GPT-4.0. And I did the same thing, and I compared it to Claude 3.5 Sonnet to see, what that did. Now, the prompt that I used is one that I used to generate an overview of the topic. As if the AI is an instructor, is going to introduce a subject area and lay out what the full scope of the concept area or concept space is. And as I expected, there is a difference between, it's not exactly the same between 4.0 Mini and 4.0. And so let me share my screen and show you, kind of some of the elements of that. Okay, what you're looking at here is a really great tool called Vellum, which lets me do the same prompt, exactly the same prompt across any number of models that I want to do the comparison with. So this first column here is GPT-4.0 Mini. You see, I've selected it here. And the second one is Claude 3.5 Sonnet. You see that here. And then on the far right here is GPT-4 Turbo. And this is the prompt. I'm not going to go through the detail of it, but the topic that I selected here is LLM prompting. And so here's 4.0 Mini's Introduction to LLM Prompting. It looks very similar to Introduction to LLM Prompting over here on the right. But you see it's a little shorter phrasing on the basic introduction. And then it uses a slightly different structure for organizing the ideas and major concepts in LLM prompting. And over here, using the same prompt, 4.0 says subtopics overview. And we're looking far left column compared to far right column. This is 4.0 Mini on the left and 4.0 on the right, GPT-4 Turbo on the right. And in a moment, I'll just change this to GPT-4.0 and we'll see what that change is. But you can see there's differences in here. Like this one includes prompt efficiency. and a concept called feedback loops. Over here, we have iterative prompting that doesn't occur over here. So trying to figure out what the sort of the knowledge space is that each one of these very similar models is presenting is tricky. Now I'm going to change this one to GPT-4.0. Here's Mini, and here's 4.0 down here. So I'm going to change that, and I'm going to confirm that change. And then now we see GPT-4.0 on the right. I'll run it. And the first thing that the prompt asks the model to do is to provide a kind of an idea that maybe the learner doesn't know about. But they're very, very similar between 4.0 and did you know that the way you phrase a question or request to the language model can significantly influence the quality of the response received? Oh, well, yeah, I kind of knew that. Over here on 4.0, it says, did you know that the way you phrase a question or prompt can significantly influence the quality and accuracy of the response you get from a large language model? Slightly different phrasing, but very similar between 4.0 and 4.0 Mini. Now, when you get to this structure of the overview, here now, again, we're comparing 4.0, which has a very different training base from GPT-4 Turbo. There's a lot of similarity here, but the term prompt engineering occurs from 4.0, and it doesn't really occur over here. And again, it says iterative refinement from 4.0 and iterative prompting over here. So there's subtle differences between those two. But now look at how different Claude 3.5 is. It says, did you know that the way you phrase a question to an AI can dramatically change the quality and relevance of its response? Much like how rephrasing a question to a human expert can lead to more insightful answers. I thought that was a really interesting difference because it provided a kind of analogy in explaining that thing. And then here's a big difference that I found. One of the important points about prompting at this point is examples. And few-shot learning, which is providing examples to the LLM in your prompt context, is shown to dramatically improve the output response. And oddly, 4.0 and 4.0 Mini, neither one of them refer to, in a high-level overview, refer to examples and few-shot learning as a term of art specifically. So this might give you pause about using 4.0 or 4.0 Mini, at least it would in my comparison, because I kind of liked the framing of the whole process that Claude provided a little bit better than 4.0. But my final conclusion was that 4.0 Mini did a pretty competent job, slight differences, very similar to 4.0, but 4.0 Mini, it would have been perfectly adequate for generating something that would be satisfying to any number of students who might be using that particular output.
Right. And I think you brought up a really good point because are we all in agreement that if you compare 4.0 Mini to 3.5 in terms of content or writing or context, we're going to be disappointed in that context?
Disappointed as in you like...
As in... Sorry. Go ahead, ask.
Oh, disappointed as it's worse? We feel that it's worse than 3.5?
Yes.
Ooh,
we're not in agreement.
I don't know, because I think when you're like, I don't see this as, for example, I think it depends on use case too, because if you're on just regular ChatGPT, and let's say you don't have a Plus account, you just normal account, 4.0, 3.5, if you've really been using it on a regular basis, which is a very small percentage, you will see some sort of difference. But if most people don't, if you have a free account, you probably aren't using it every day. So you may or may not see a difference. I think where you could really see the difference from a cost perspective is if you build with it. So if you're building with it, and let's say the entire object of your build is more of a not fine tune, maybe a, just pure RAG, just pure data retrieval off a bunch of PDFs. And if it's just super PDF accurate, I'm sure that's probably where you'd probably want to use it. Let's say an internal employee manual just for internal employees for a medium-sized company, small business company. I think like 4.0 Mini should be enough. But if you're building it for more comprehensive use, more maybe external facing customer questions type, you probably want to build it with 4.0. So I think it's a bunch of use cases depending on your audience, what you want it to do, and then what's your expectation in terms of questions, right? Because I'm thinking too, if you're using Copilot Studio and you're just connecting it to SharePoint, for example, I'm not sure 4.0 or 4 Mini there'd be much difference. If you're just,
No.
Right? It totally depends on use case. And then if you have an enterprise company that is in the tens or 20s or 50s of thousands, I'd probably want to go with the Mini versus, especially if it's like, oh, we built this thing, Copilot Studio, using it specifically for asking about legal questions. Yeah, or vacation requests. Yeah, you probably want to use GPT-4.0 Mini because just in terms of pure cost.
Right.
Right. So, yeah, I feel like it depends on what you're building.
I would agree with that. I just want to clarify. What I was asking was if you're comparing 4.0 Mini with Sonnet 3.5, you're going to be disappointed. Sonnet 3.5 is always going to be like the better thing. But you're right, Karl. If you're looking for good enough and significant reduction in cost, that's going to win, I think.
I also wanted to go back and highlight a couple of things. Number one, Karl, what you were saying about if you are using the free version of ChatGPT, that's an excellent point. None of this matters if you're using the free version of ChatGPT because you just use 4.0, right? Because it's not a matter of your building. It's not a matter of speed necessarily because you're in that one-to-one, interface. And you have limited responses anyway. So I think using 4.0 over 4.0 Mini is for the people who are on the free version.
Well, except that it does matter because 4.0 Mini just replaced 3.5 when you run out of the 4.0 questions that you get to ask.
Oh, right. Well, I was more highlighting the fact that if you're using the free version of ChatGPT, then your limitations about, you're going to have your so many limits per hours or 3 hours or whatever it is. But in terms of what the quality, if it's a quality question of using Mini over 4.0, then, I don't think that's so much of an issue because you're going to use what your limits are and you're either going to stick to that or you're going to want to go to the plus or you're going to want to, use the API for those kinds of things. So that's essentially what I wanted to highlight is if you're in that space, then it's not a matter of quality, it's a matter of what your other limitations are. The other thing I wanted to highlight was Andy. What the name of the app you were using was Vellum, right? That service is right. That model comparison, is that a major feature of that service, or is that does it do something else and that's an add-on for them?
That's at the heart of their workflow management and LLM ops deployment platform. So if you're running a system like Karl does for his customers, and you want to decide whether a new model is less expensive, is actually going to work better or sufficiently in your deployment, you can just pull up this panel. It shows you that you're currently deploying 4.0. Now I want to test it against 4.0 Mini and see if the results are good enough. And then I just literally click deploy and I switch over to the other model and it goes right into that pipeline of processes that I built for the customer.
And it's a
very cool product.
But it's an enterprise product. It's not a...
yes and no. I mean, they have some major enterprises using this product to do their,
Well, I guess mainly pricing wise. Is it expensive or is it...
Yeah. Okay, no, that's right. This would be used by a business, or a business like 0 to 60 AI. That's Karl's company. They might, buy the subscription to Vellum because it's just a better platform for managing a whole bunch of different customers and all of the different deployments that they have with them.
Gotcha. So Andy, I was just waiting for you to just do and remember, if you buy Vellum today for 20%, you'll get 20% off discount. Use Andy 3624.
Okay, that's not real. Don't try to use that code.
No, not yet.
No, I'm a fanboy of Vellum, but I'm not a representative of Vellum.
But Vellum, call us. All right. So I want to also share that if you're not a customer of Vellum, OpenAI on their playground has the ability to run a comparison. So you could see that I have chosen Mini and GPT-4.0, and those are the things that I'm asking it, and I can say write a limerick about tuna and run. This is not a great thing, but they will both run. And we can decide whether we think that one is better than the other. But the other piece of information that it gives you is the milliseconds, the latency. The tokens is including all of it, I believe, which is why those token numbers keep increasing, because that's definitely not 4,234 tokens for this limerick. But if you want to compare some things specifically with OpenAI, that's a way to do that, and that is platform.openai.com. When you run your test, it will you'll get charged by the API costs. Okay. Anybody else have something they want to say to wrap this up? Oh, and I
do, because I feel I guess the question was to the group and also to the people who are on live with us today. If you had a choice today between using GPT-4.0 and GPT-4.0 Mini for, let's say, just regular, if you're on ChatGPT, desktop, mobile, wherever you're using it, I would imagine we're all probably going to stick with GPT-4.0, right? Probably not going to switch to Mini. So I honestly feel it's like it's really more for developers and what you're building. I'm not sure we'd use it for anything other than that. Yeah, am I wrong?
I mean, I agree with you. I think Mini is probably fantastic for those repetitive tasks, right? If you what's the basic rule? If you do it 3 times, then build an automation, and then if it's an automation, then Mini is probably going to overall be better for you than regular 4.0.
Right. Yeah. Well, I suspect that it's also a little bit about what OpenAI is moving towards, and we've said many, many times that we're moving towards agents and agentic features. Those comparisons that I was doing and showing on the platform also include the ability to see how each of those calls functions and uses them. So those are pieces where we're starting to get to more agentic-like behaviors. And yeah, Karl.
Well, there's one thing too. It'd be really neat to see if we could ever down the road with any custom GPTs be able to switch. Because right now you can't do anything. I think it's like it automatically defaults to whatever the latest model is for your custom GPT. And I think people have built around that. But it would be nice to be able to build certain things. I can't think of any examples right now, but I'm sure there are people who have like certain automations that they use their custom GPTs for that they don't necessarily need that. Or what I like to test is speed-wise, how fast everyone go, like whichever goes. So it'd be nice to maybe in the custom GPTs to see that. So if any OpenAI people are actually listening to or watching this, it'd be awesome to be able to do that with your custom GPTs.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things that I think is happening on the back end because of some things that OpenAI has said, like in the last couple of months, is that they're switching. If they think the question doesn't need the highest level of the model, they're switching it on the back end because they're saving their own costs, which I think is why we're not given that option. Awesome. So let's share Justin's take. Justin thinks 4.0 Mini is solid. Depends on your use case. Non-enterprise users might not switch due to its lack of internet and upload support. Absolutely. These features are essential for Justin. I totally get that. Yeah.
I get it. I agree. Now.
Okay. So I think we're going to wrap it here today. Thanks, everybody, for joining us. You can find us at thedailyAIshow.com. And we have a newsletter that comes out on Sundays. You can find out more about the topics that we're talking about and what we're talking about privately in our Slack. Tomorrow, we are going to talk about the future of AI, you and your future AI avatar. Who owns that? Who owns you? Who owns your likeness? Super important topic, particularly if you are someone who is in a business and your likeness is being used, right? Because it's easier just to script you and your avatar than to have than to schedule you. So something to think about. Wednesday is our news show. Thursday, we're talking about, is AI better at empathy than humans? Spoiler, maybe. And Friday, we're doing our 2-week recap show. We have our 1-year anniversary coming up next week. So please come back. Please like and subscribe and support us. It's so fun to do this for you. And on that note, have a happy Monday. We'll see you tomorrow.
Aloha.